My wife and my boss, two people who should have had my back, stabbed me instead. And trust me, they both paid the price for it. I had everything a man could ask for: a stable job, a loving wife, and a promising future. At least that's what I thought. But life has a way of pulling the rug out from under you when you least expect it. What started as an ordinary day at work turned into a nightmare that changed everything. When I found out the truth, I didn't react with rage. No, that would have been too easy. Instead, I played the long game, making sure they both regretted every second of their betrayal. It started slowly, almost imperceptibly. Lisa wasn't the same woman I had married. At first, the changes were so small that I convinced myself it was nothing. I'd come home from work to find her in new outfits. Nothing too extravagant, but different enough to make me pause. I noticed the new perfume, a fragrance I'd never smelled on her before, and the slight change in her style. More elegant, more polished. I complimented her, assuming she was simply feeling more confident. But as I spoke, I couldn't ignore the strange glint in her eyes. There was something off, something I couldn't put my finger on. A coldness, like a barrier, had been erected between us. "Nice new look, Lisa," I'd say, trying to sound casual. She'd smile almost too perfectly and thank me, but there was that distance. A subtle, unsettling distance that lingered in the air. I tried to dismiss it. After all, maybe she was just evolving, or maybe I was just imagining things. But the discomfort in the pit of my stomach grew. Then, the phone became her new constant companion. At first, it was just a minor inconvenience, her always texting or scrolling, even when we were supposed to be spending time together. But as days passed, it became more noticeable. I'd walk into the living room, and she'd be hunched over her phone, her fingers rapidly tapping away. The moment I'd enter the room, her hands would freeze, and she'd hurriedly swipe away whatever was on the screen. It wasn't even subtle anymore. Her face would light up with this smile that didn't belong to me. The kind of smile that wasn't meant for a husband. Her laugh, soft, almost seductive, echoed through the house when she texted someone. A laugh I hadn't heard in years. I asked her once, casually, "Who are you texting so much lately?" "Just a friend," she'd reply, her tone a bit too dismissive, and her eyes avoiding mine, as if she were hiding something. The more she did it, the more I felt that sickening pull of suspicion deep inside me. I had never seen Lisa act like this before. What was so special about this friend? Why was she always on edge when I asked about it? Conversations between us grew shorter, less intimate. It was as if I no longer existed in her world. I'd try to engage her in conversation, but she would seem distracted, almost like she wasn't listening. Her eyes would glaze over, and her mind was somewhere far away, somewhere I couldn't reach. I started wondering if I was just imagining things, if maybe I was overthinking it. After all, 7 years of marriage, right? We were bound to hit some rough patches. But no, this was different. Something was off. I could feel it in my bones. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home early to find her sitting in the living room, her phone again in hand. She was texting someone, her fingers tapping rapidly. But this time, I noticed something else. A small smirk playing at the corner of her lips. A smirk that didn't seem to be meant for me. That feeling in my gut intensified. Was it just a friend she was texting? Or was there more to the story? I couldn't shake the feeling. My mind raced. My instincts screamed at me that something was wrong. I tried to push it away, telling myself I was just being paranoid. But every moment with her now felt like walking on a tightrope. Every glance, every word, every smile. It all felt staged. And then it happened. The moment that changed everything. Late one night, I walked into the kitchen to grab a drink. Lisa was sitting at the table, her phone in hand. But this time, she wasn't smiling. Her expression was more serious, even nervous. As soon as she saw me, her hands froze, and her eyes widened slightly. I took a step closer, and before I could say anything, she quickly shoved her phone in her pocket. "What's going on, Lisa?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. My voice was calm, but underneath, there was a sharpness I hadn't realized was there. I was done pretending. I had to know. She hesitated, then looked at me with a mixture of guilt and frustration. "It's nothing. Just work stuff." Her voice was trembling, and her eyes flickered away again. I stared at her, my suspicions growing. The distance was so thick now, it felt like there was no going back. I could feel the secrets between us, building like an insurmountable wall. But I wasn't ready to let go just yet. What was she hiding? And why couldn't I shake the feeling that the person on the other end of her texts was more than just a friend? The air was thick with tension, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt completely alone. The truth was slipping further away from me with every passing moment, and I was beginning to fear that what I had once trusted, what I had once loved, was being stolen right out from under me. The first time she stayed late at work, I didn't think much of it. She had always been dedicated, driven. Her ambition was one of the things that drew me to her in the first place. A late-night deadline? Sure, it could happen. But then it became a pattern. The late nights grew more frequent, more predictable, until it felt like they were the new normal. And that's when something inside me, something I couldn't ignore, started to stir. A quiet voice, nagging, whispering that something wasn't right. I remember one night, after she got home at nearly midnight, I tried to play it cool. "So, what's been keeping you so late lately?" I asked, trying to sound casual, like I didn't already have a sinking feeling in my stomach. She looked at me for a split second, her eyes flickering just a little too fast. "Just a bunch of urgent projects," she replied, a little too quickly. "New clients. You know how it is." Her voice was steady, but there was a hesitation in her eyes that didn't match her words. She gave me that smile, the one she always used when she didn't want to talk about something, the smile that always seemed a little too rehearsed. I nodded, trying to convince myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking it. But deep down, I knew something had changed. Something was off. Days turned into weeks, and the excuses kept coming. "A project with the team," she'd say. But every time I tried to dig deeper, to ask for details, she became evasive. "Who's on the team?" I'd ask. "What's the project about?" Each time, her answers would be vague. "Just a project. Nothing too important." I would press further, but the more questions I asked, the less she would reveal. Her eyes would dart around, avoiding mine, as if she was searching for a way to make her lies sound more believable. I could feel it in the air between us, the tension, the weight of the secrets she was carrying. And then, just when I thought I was getting closer to the truth, she'd smile that same forced smile and say, "It's just a busy time, babe. Nothing to worry about." But the smile never reached her eyes anymore, and the words tasted bitter on her lips. The late nights became more than just an inconvenience. They became a constant. The excuses turned into an endless cycle, each one more elaborate than the last. Late meeting, urgent client call, unexpected deadline, and every time she was late, I felt it. A little more of her slipping away, a little more of the woman I thought I knew fading into the distance. The more she kept her distance, the more I felt like something was slowly dying between us. I tried not to let it get to me, to trust her like I always had. But the feeling in my gut didn't go away. Every time she came home late, I could see the cracks forming. Each excuse was just enough to make me doubt myself, but not enough to completely silence the storm raging inside me. I began to wonder, was she really working late? Or was there something else happening behind the scenes? Something she wasn't telling me. The question gnawed at me, pulling me deeper into a web of doubt and suspicion. It wasn't just her late nights or her strange behavior. It was the small things. The way she suddenly became so protective of her phone, locking it whenever I was near, taking calls in whispered tones, as though I was intruding on a secret world that didn't include me. It was subtle, but the signs were impossible to ignore. Every time I walked into the room, she'd quickly hide her screen, as though I was about to catch her in the act of something terrible. I told myself I was overreacting, that maybe I was just being paranoid, but the unease in my stomach refused to go away. It was a quiet discomfort, something small, but growing with every passing day. Every glance she gave her phone, every time she shielded it from me, made my instincts scream that something wasn't right. The more she pushed me away, the more my suspicions intensified. I wanted to believe in her, but the walls between us were rising higher with each secret she kept. But then came the night everything changed. I had come home late, exhausted after a grueling day at work, and she was already in bed, the soft hum of the TV in the background. I collapsed onto the couch, too tired to even think straight. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt heavy, like something was about to break. I was drifting off to sleep when I glanced over at the nightstand. Her phone sat there, innocently enough, but it was like it was calling to me. Normally, I would have respected her privacy. I would have turned away, minding my own business. But that nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, the one that had been growing steadily, told me to check. It was a thought that came out of nowhere, but it felt like a command, something I couldn't ignore. I tried to dismiss it. You're just being paranoid, I told myself, but the temptation, the need to know, was overpowering. I reached over and grabbed her phone. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it, the soft light of the screen reflecting in my eyes. And there it was, a message preview from an unknown number. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. My chest tightened instantly, my breath catching in my throat. I stared at the message, trying to process what I was reading. Every muscle in my body tensed. It was clear. The message was undeniable. This wasn't just a late-night work call or a harmless chat with a friend. No, this was something else entirely. I didn't wake her. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't ready for that. The message, though, was too much to ignore. It was the confirmation I needed, but it wasn't enough. I couldn't just barge in, accuse her without knowing more. I had to be sure. This was no longer about a hunch, about suspicions that I could brush off. This was real. She had crossed a line, and I needed proof, something concrete I could hold on to. With my heart pounding in my ears, I put the phone back down on the nightstand and lay there, wide awake. I knew the moment I confronted her, there would be no going back. But this wasn't just about a relationship anymore. It was about finding the truth. No matter how ugly it turned out to be, I was going to uncover everything. And once I did, there was no turning back. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake that message from my mind. It was like a poison, slowly seeping into every thought, every waking moment. Couldn't ignore it. I needed to know more. My heart raced every time she stepped out of the room, every time she went to work, every time I couldn't see her. The thought of her with someone else gnawed at me, and I couldn't let it slide. But I also couldn't confront her just yet. Not without undeniable proof. I had to be sure. There was no room for doubt. The more I watched her, the more I realized something. Her behavior had changed, but so had mine. I was no longer the same person I used to be. I was obsessed with every move she made. Where was she going? Who was she talking to? What was she hiding? My mind was racing, trying to piece together the puzzle of our unraveling life. I couldn't just sit back and wait for the truth to come to me. I had to find it. So, I started checking her phone records. I combed through every call, every text, looking for something, anything, that would confirm my worst fears. At first, there wasn't much. Just ordinary conversations, a few work-related calls. I kept telling myself to be patient, to keep looking. But with each passing day, the feeling in my gut grew stronger, more insistent. I wasn't giving up. One evening, I did something I'd never thought I would do. I followed her. I had no plan, no idea what I was going to find. But something told me to keep my distance, to stay hidden. She had gone out to run some errands, or so she'd said. But something didn't sit right. I found her at a cafe, one she'd never mentioned before. I kept my distance, staying on the other side of the street, my eyes fixed on her every move. Then I saw him, the man. He wasn't familiar to me. I didn't get a good look at his face, but I didn't need to. The way she smiled at him, it wasn't the same smile she gave me. It wasn't the smile she gave anyone. There was something different about it. Something intimate, something that made my stomach churn in a way I couldn't ignore. Her eyes lit up when she saw him, her posture softening. That smile, so genuine, so unguarded. It was reserved for him. My heart pounded in my chest, and my body froze. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, unable to wake up. The truth was right there, staring me in the face, but I couldn't bring myself to fully accept it. Not yet. I wanted to confront her, to run up to her and demand the truth, but something held me back. Fear? Denial? Maybe both. I stayed hidden, watching from afar, feeling like a stranger in my own life. The sinking feeling in my gut told me everything I needed to know, but I wasn't ready to face it. Not yet. The truth was undeniable now. Every piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. The late nights, the secretive texts, the hidden calls, and now this meeting. Lisa was cheating. It was clear as day. And it wasn't just some random fling. No. She was seeing someone else. Someone who had been a part of her life for longer than I had known. I could feel the weight of that realization crashing down on me. I was furious, heartbroken, confused, all at once. How could she do this to me? To us? I had trusted her. I had given her everything. My heart, my loyalty, my faith. And this was how she repaid me? It didn't make sense. My mind was spinning, my heart shattering with each passing second. How could the woman I had loved so deeply, the woman I had built a life with, betray me so completely? That night, when she returned home from work, I didn't wait. I didn't give her a chance to brush it off, to make another excuse, to hide behind a lie. I was done. She stepped through the door, and I was already standing there, waiting for her. She froze when she saw me, her eyes scanning my face as though searching for some clue, some sign that everything was okay. But there was no sign. There was nothing but the cold, hard truth in my eyes. I know what's been going on, I said, my voice steady but laced with a sharp edge. The words came pouring out of me in a rush. The late nights, the secret messages, the man you're seeing. Don't try to deny it. For a long moment, she didn't say a word. She just stood there, frozen in place, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. I could see her chest rising and falling rapidly, like she was trying to steady herself. Her lips parted, as if she was going to speak, but nothing came out. The silence between us was deafening. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest, louder than anything else. Her eyes were red. Her expression crumpled in a way I had never seen before. She wasn't even trying to deny it. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't offering an explanation. She was just silent. And in that silence, it hit me. I had loved her with everything I had. I had trusted her with every part of myself. But she had betrayed me. She had shattered the bond we once shared. The pain was unbearable, but I couldn't look away. I couldn't stop myself from seeing the woman I thought I knew, seeing her for who she truly was in that moment. She had broken me, and all I could do was stand there, waiting for her to say something, anything, to make sense of it. But the silence stretched on, and I realized that nothing she could say would ever undo the damage. She had made her choice, and now so would I. The confrontation was just the beginning. The moment I had been dreading, the moment that would change everything, had come. But nothing prepared me for the aftermath. Lisa didn't put up a fight. There were no angry words, no pleading for forgiveness, no attempts to explain herself. She just left. That same night, without hesitation, without looking back. She packed her things and walked out the door, leaving me standing there, alone in the house we had once called home. The silence that followed was suffocating. It pressed in on me from all sides, filling every corner of the house. I felt as though the walls were closing in, and I couldn't escape. I replayed everything over and over in my mind. The late nights, the excuses, the way she'd changed, all the signs I had missed. How had I not seen it sooner? How had I been so blind to what was really happening right in front of me? My heart ached with the weight of it all. But it wasn't just about her betrayal anymore. It was about me. It was about the choices I had made, about how I had let my love for her blind me to the truth. How had I allowed myself to believe in her lies for so long? How had I ignored the warnings, the gut feelings that had been telling me something was wrong? The pain of it was overwhelming, and I felt completely lost. How was I supposed to move on from this? How could I ever trust again? Days turned into weeks, and the emptiness inside me only grew. I would find myself staring at the space where she used to sit, where she used to laugh, where we used to talk about our dreams. But now, it was just me, surrounded by the ghost of a life that no longer existed. I had trusted her completely, and now that trust was shattered beyond repair. There was no going back. But as time passed, something inside me shifted. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal, it all started to turn into something else. Something darker, something colder. I wasn't just going to let this slide. I wasn't going to let her walk away, free of any consequences for what she had done. She had made her choice, and now I would make mine. I was done being the victim. She had taken so much from me. My trust, my love, my sense of security. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I wasn't going to let her think she could destroy everything we had built and walk away without facing the consequences. She would regret this. She would regret ever thinking she could get away with breaking my heart. The game had changed, and this time I was in control. It started with what seemed like small, insignificant things I brushed off at first. But as time went on, those little observations began to add up, building into something bigger, something I could no longer ignore. Lisa, the woman I thought I knew so well, was changing. The signs were subtle at first, just a shift in her behavior, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. She became more secretive. Her phone, once left carelessly around the house, was now always in her possession, never out of her sight. She kept it so close to her, as if it were a lifeline she didn't want me to touch. I noticed the way she would tense up when I got too close, the way she would quickly swipe away notifications if I walked into the room. It was like she had something to hide. Her demeanor shifted too. She seemed distracted, her mind always elsewhere, even when she was sitting right next to me. The woman I had once known so well was now a stranger in my own home. Conversations that used to flow effortlessly between us became strained. I could feel the distance growing between us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. But what? One evening, Lisa told me she was going out with her best friend, Emily. I thought nothing of it at first. They had been friends for years, after all. But something about the way she said it, the way she avoided eye contact when she mentioned it, made me pause. Still, I didn't think much of it. After all, it wasn't unusual for her to go out with Emily. A few days later, I ran into Emily's husband at the store. I casually mentioned that Lisa had been out with Emily the other night. His response was unexpected, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Emily was home that night, he said, his voice tinged with confusion. The words hung in the air between us, and my heart dropped. Why would Lisa lie about something so trivial, something so easily verifiable? His words were like a slap to the face. I felt my stomach twist as the pieces began to fall into place. This wasn't just a simple misunderstanding. Lisa had lied to me about something that shouldn't even matter. That was the moment my suspicion turned into certainty. Something wasn't right, and I knew I had to find out what was going on. I couldn't let this slide. The trust we had, the bond we had built, was slipping away before my eyes, and I wasn't going to sit idly by. I had to dig deeper. I had to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I couldn't let the lies keep piling up. No more secrets. No more pretending everything was okay. This was just the beginning, and I would get to the bottom of it, no matter what it took. As my unease grew, I found myself looking for patterns. Anything that might give me a clue about what was really going on. The nagging feeling that something wasn't right had taken root deep inside me, and I couldn't shake it. I had to know the truth. And so, the first place I thought to check was our shared bank account. Lisa had always been open about finances. We had no secrets there, and I never thought twice about it. But this time, as I skimmed through the recent transactions, my heart sank. She had been withdrawing cash, more frequently than usual, and for no apparent reason. The amounts were small, almost insignificant on their own, but there was something about the pattern that sent a chill down my spine. Just enough to go unnoticed, but not enough to escape my attention. It was like she was trying to cover her tracks without being too obvious. But that wasn't all. What really caught my attention were the hotel bills and charges from fancy restaurants. Places I had never been to, hotels I had never stayed in, and restaurants I didn't even recognize. The more I dug, the more I realized that these weren't the usual expenses. This was something different. This was secret spending, spending that didn't belong to our life together. And each transaction, each charge, seemed to point to one thing. She was hiding something. My gut twisted as I scrolled through the list of charges. The frequency, the locations, the types of places she had been. It all painted a picture I didn't want to see, but I couldn't ignore it. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the lies, the betrayal, the realization that something was happening outside of our marriage. Something she hadn't told me about. But even with all this evidence, something still held me back. I didn't have enough yet. I couldn't just confront her with a few suspicious transactions. I needed more. I needed solid proof. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but they weren't complete. Not yet. I had to be sure, and I couldn't risk confronting her without undeniable evidence. She had been careful, but so had I. And this game, this twisted, painful game, wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. I would find the answers, and when I did, I would finally have the truth. I knew I couldn't just sit back and wait for things to unravel on their own. The evidence had been piling up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed more. Something that would leave no room for doubt. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I couldn't keep ignoring the small, but growing whispers in my mind. One night, Lisa told me she was going to a late work dinner, another one of her usual excuses. Her stories had become more frequent, more rehearsed, and I couldn't ignore the pattern anymore. I smiled and said I'd see her when she got back. But deep down, I knew this time would be different. I wasn't going to just sit there while everything fell apart. I followed her. My heart raced as I drove through the streets, keeping a safe distance behind her car. I had to be careful, too close and she'd notice. Too far and I might lose her. My eyes never left her car as she cruised along, completely unaware of what was happening behind her. She was focused on the road ahead, and I was focused on every move she made. I wasn't sure what I was expecting to find, but what I saw made my blood run cold. Instead of heading toward her office, she took a sharp turn, a sudden detour that threw me off guard. My mind raced, spinning through 1,000 thoughts as I followed her through the winding streets, my heart pounding with every turn. The city seemed like a blur as I clung to the car behind her, trying to calm myself, to make sense of what was happening. I was getting closer, and I had no idea where this would lead. And then, the moment I had dreaded, and yet, in some sick way, been waiting for, happened. Lisa pulled into a hotel parking lot. My stomach dropped as I realized what I was seeing. It wasn't just a business dinner. It wasn't just another late night at work. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I slowed to a stop, hiding in the shadows, watching. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was what happened next. A car pulled into the parking lot beside hers. A car I recognized all too well. It was Mr. Carter's car. My boss. The same man who had always been supportive of my career, the one who had trusted me with the biggest projects, the man I had considered a mentor. My mind reeled as I watched them get out of their cars, greeting each other with smiles that I hadn't seen on Lisa's face in years. Her eyes lit up in a way that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a business dinner, not by a long shot. This was something far worse. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Lisa wasn't just hiding something from me. She was lying, and she wasn't lying to some random stranger. She was lying to me with someone I knew, someone I had trusted. I wanted to storm in there, confront them both, and make them feel the full weight of my betrayal. I wanted to yell, to demand answers, to make them see the damage they had done. But I held myself back. I couldn't be impulsive, couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. If I acted on impulse, they could deny everything, spin a story that made me seem crazy. I needed more. I needed undeniable proof, something that could shatter their carefully constructed lies. This wasn't just about my feelings anymore. It was about the truth, and I wasn't going to stop until I had it. I couldn't risk being wrong. As much as it tore at me, I knew deep down that I needed cold, hard evidence. My emotions were on fire, but I had to stay in control. Confronting her without being absolutely certain wasn't an option. I couldn't let her and Carter twist things around, make it all seem like I was overreacting, imagining things. No, I needed undeniable proof. Something that would not only ruin their carefully crafted lies but would also ensure that no matter what, there would be no escape for either of them. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I hired a private investigator. It didn't take long for the investigator to start pulling together the pieces. Within a week, I had everything I needed, more than I could have ever hoped for. Photos, videos, and time-stamped evidence that were impossible to deny. I sat there, stunned, as I went through the images one by one. There they were, Lisa and Carter, together at that same hotel, the same place I had seen them in the parking lot. Their affair wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was real. It was happening right under my nose, while I'd been blind to it all. The investigator didn't stop there. He kept digging, and what he uncovered went beyond anything I had imagined. Weekend getaways, trips to luxurious resorts, intimate dinners at high-end restaurants. These weren't the random, innocent outings they could have claimed. These were carefully planned moments, shared between them behind my back. The worst part? The trips they took coincided with my own business travels. Every time I was away, it was like they took that opportunity to grow closer, to solidify their secret world. Couldn't believe it. The life I thought I had was unraveling in front of me. I had trusted Lisa completely, and she had betrayed me in the most devastating way imaginable. But now there was no turning back. I had the proof, the cold, hard facts that would shatter their lives the way they were about to shatter mine. And I was ready to make sure they paid for every lie, every stolen moment. Every single piece of evidence the investigator had gathered only confirmed what I had feared. Lisa and Carter weren't just sneaking around in hotels. They had built an entire life behind my back. A life I wasn't a part of. Weekend trips to exotic places, stays in luxurious hotels, candlelit dinners at expensive restaurants. All of it was happening while I was left at home, oblivious to the double life she had been leading. I had trusted her, given her everything I had, and this was how she repaid me? By betraying me with the man who had once been my mentor? The photos, the videos, the timestamps, they all screamed the truth. There was no more room for doubt. The woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew, had been living a completely different reality without me. A reality where I was just a shadow, a mere placeholder while she built something with him. Carter, my boss, the same man I had trusted for years, was now revealed to be the man who had stolen everything I thought was sacred. My trust, my love, my marriage. I was no longer just a victim of Lisa's betrayal. I was a pawn in their twisted game, caught up in a web of lies and deceit, held together by a fragile thread that was now unraveling. But I wasn't going to let them get away with this. No, I had the proof, and I was going to make sure they both paid for everything they had done to me. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about taking back control. About showing them that the man they had tried to deceive wasn't as weak or blind as they thought. Now that I had everything I needed, the choice wasn't as simple as confronting them in a fit of rage. As tempting as it was to walk up to Lisa and Carter and throw their betrayal in their faces, I knew that kind of impulsive confrontation wouldn't give me the justice I needed. No, it would only make things worse. They would deny it, dismiss it, try to spin the narrative in their favor, and I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let them talk their way out of what they had done to me. I needed to plan this carefully. Every step, every word had to be precise. The anger inside me was like a burning fire, but I knew I had to control it. The longer I thought about it, the clearer the plan became. This wouldn't just be about airing my hurt or getting closure. It would be about making them understand the consequences of their actions, making them realize the pain they had caused, and ensuring that there was no way for them to escape the consequences. I wasn't going to let Lisa or Carter walk away from this unscathed. They thought they could ruin my life, steal everything I held dear, without facing any repercussions. But I was going to show them exactly how wrong they were. I wasn't going to just sit back and let them get away with it. No, I would destroy them, but I would do it in a way that left no doubt, no way for them to wriggle free. This was my moment of control, and I wasn't going to waste it. I couldn't just let it end with a few harsh words or an emotional confrontation. No, this was bigger than that. I had spent weeks, months, really watching, waiting, and collecting evidence. the receipts, the texts, the photos. All of it was now in my hands, undeniable proof of their betrayal. I wasn't going to let it slip away, not without making them feel the weight of their choices. Lisa thought she could live a double life and leave me in the dark, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. She had no idea what was coming. She thought I was blind, that I would just accept her lies. But I wasn't the man she married anymore. I was something different now. I had been changed by the betrayal, shaped by the hurt, and now I had power, the kind of power that comes from knowing the truth and having the means to make them pay for their actions. And Carter, he wasn't just a colleague or a boss anymore. He was the man who had destroyed everything I worked for, who had taken advantage of my trust in the most cruel way. He was going to regret ever getting involved in this mess. I didn't care about the professional connections anymore. This was personal. I wasn't going to let him escape scot-free while he ruined my life. I had a plan, and when it was time to execute it, nothing would stand in my way. I would bring them both to their knees, and they would know exactly what it felt like to lose everything they thought they could have. Because the truth was, there was no going back from this. The damage had been done, and now it was time for them to face the consequences. Carter's downfall wasn't just a victory for me. It was a reminder of the cost of betrayal. I had made sure that every piece of evidence I had gathered worked against him, every detail meticulously orchestrated to ensure that he would never recover. His fall from grace was swift and brutal. The moment the board found out about his affair with Lisa, the cracks in his professional facade began to show. But when the financial fraud surfaced, that was the final nail in his coffin. No one would ever trust him again. The people who once admired him now saw him for what he truly was. A liar, a cheater, and a criminal. His colleagues abandoned him. His wife left him, too, unable to bear the weight of the lies and the humiliation. Carter had built his entire life on lies, and now he was left with nothing but the wreckage of his actions. Watching it all unfold gave me a sense of satisfaction. This was his punishment, the consequence of his betrayal. But Carter wasn't the only one who needed to feel the weight of his actions. Lisa, she wasn't getting off easy either. I wasn't going to let her walk away without facing the consequences of what she had done. Her betrayal had torn me apart, and now it was time for her to lose everything too. I had to make sure she understood the gravity of her choices. She needed to face what she had done. And when the time was right, I would make sure she did. The moment had arrived. Lisa was blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit her. She continued with her routine, unaware that every action, every word of hers had already been dissected and analyzed. I had been patient, too patient, perhaps. But now, I was ready to confront her, to let her see the full consequences of her betrayal. I waited for her to settle in, thinking everything was just as it always was. She was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone, completely unaware of what was happening behind the scenes. With a calmness I had never known, I walked into the room and stood in front of her. Her eyes met mine, and for the briefest moment, she seemed to sense something was off. But she said nothing, her expression neutral, trying to maintain control. It only made me feel more powerful. I let the silence linger, feeling the weight of the moment. Then, without warning, I pulled out the envelope containing everything. The photos, the texts, the receipts. I placed it in front of her on the table. "Explain this," I said, my voice steady but cold. Her face drained of color as she reached for the envelope, her hands trembling. She opened it slowly, and as she saw the undeniable evidence, I could see the reality crashing down on her. Her lips parted, but no words came. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with shock, realizing that I knew everything. I wasn't going to let her get away with empty excuses. I was done with her lies. This was my moment, the moment where she would realize just how much she had destroyed. She had thought she could get away with everything, but I had been patient, and now it was her turn to face the consequences. Her tears, her apologies, they meant nothing now. As she begged for forgiveness, I stood there, calm and resolute. She had taken everything from me, and now she was going to face the consequences of her actions. I watched her break down, but there was no sympathy left in me. I had loved her once, but that person was gone. The woman sitting in front of me was a stranger, someone who had betrayed my trust and destroyed everything we had built together. "I don't want to hear it, Lisa," I said, my voice firm. "You had your chance. You made your choice, and now you'll live with it." The words hung heavy in the air. She tried to reach out, but I stepped back. I wasn't the man who would allow her to manipulate me anymore. I had already taken the steps to protect myself. I had already set the wheels in motion, and there was no going back. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, but I could see that the remorse was just another act. She wasn't sorry for what she had done to me. She was sorry for getting caught. She was sorry because her comfortable life was slipping away. I didn't need her apologies. I needed closure. I needed to move on from the destruction she had caused in my life. With one final look at her, I turned and walked away, leaving her to face the mess she had made. It was over. The woman I had once loved was no longer in my life, and I was done. Lisa's desperate gaze followed me as I walked out the door, the weight of her choices sinking in. She had always believed she could control the narrative, keep her lies hidden, and use her charm to navigate through her betrayal. But now she was alone. The life she had taken for granted had crumbled, and there was no way to fix it. There was no coming back from this. I didn't feel relief, nor did I feel satisfaction. What I felt was a quiet sense of justice, a calm realization that I had taken control of my life again. I had allowed myself to be vulnerable, to trust, and to love, and I had been burned. But I wasn't going to let that define me. This wasn't about revenge. This was about regaining the dignity she had stolen from me. I was done being a victim, and Lisa, she would have to face the consequences of her actions on her own. I had made sure she understood the gravity of what she had done, and now she was left to rebuild her life from the ground up without me. The aftermath was a strange mix of peace and sorrow. I had won, but the cost had been high. The love I had given so freely was lost, and the trust one had once placed in others had been shattered. But there was a new clarity within me, a clarity that had come from reclaiming my life, from refusing to let the betrayal define who I was. Lisa and Carter were left to pick up the pieces of their broken worlds, their actions now publicly exposed for what they were. They had no more power over me, no more hold. And while their lives spiraled into chaos, mine slowly started to rebuild. I focused on myself, on finding joy in the things I had neglected while I was drowning in their lies. It wasn't easy, but I knew I was better off without them. In time, the pain would fade, and the lessons I had learned would stay with me forever. I had loved deeply, but I had also learned to stand up for myself. And as I looked ahead, I saw a future that was mine to shape, one where betrayal would no longer hold me back. They thought they could betray me and get away with it. They thought I'd break, that I'd crumble under the weight of their lies. Instead, I made sure they both lost everything. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even, it's about making sure they regret ever crossing you. Subscribe for more real-life stories you won't believe.